a production of the Mesa Chamber of Commerce. Visit us at mesachamber.org.
Awesome, great job. So it sounds like a lot of people know you, Mike. So for those of you who aren't familiar with OH Predictive Insights, and if you don't hear him on the radio all the time while you're driving efficiently in your car, I'll just take one statement off their website, which is at OH Predictive Insights, we marry research with strategic planning by creating a unique space for both to interconnect seamlessly. Good marketing people you have. That's beautiful, but we look forward to your update on the Arizona political climate, and we have a salmon representative of no less. So part of the campaign, I'm sure. So we look forward to it. Thank you.
No, thank you so much, and thank you all for having me, and it's always great to see so many familiar faces in that. It reminds me that also I started in this 13 years ago when I was a young whippersnapper, as I like to call it, and now I'm been doing this for a little bit, specialize in polling, and I'm a dad of twin boys that are now 2, and they keep me quite busy. But now, what I prepared for you all, and thanks so much for Sally Harrison and the rest of the group to have me by. I actually prepared something very special just for your group, which is to give you all an update on Arizona's political climate, but not based on Republican or Democrat, but based on the numbers. So, and I think we have a pretty good track record of having a pulse on Arizona's voting electorate. So to go in some of the topics that I want to talk with you all about today, we're going to be the political climate, but setting the stage for the 2022 races, such as like governor and Senate, which are going to be our 2 big tickets. We got a U.S. Senate seat, but also an open governor seat as well. And then we're going to talk about what I call elected official musical chairs. I'll get more into that later.
That's good.
And it only happens every decade, so this is fun. And then a brief COVID-19 update, just because that has been such a central part of our lives, but it's absolutely turned into a political football. So right, wrong, or different, and you're probably sick of hearing about it, but we got to cover it. So without further ado, and I will jump in, and I'm Mike Noble, the Chief of Research of the nonpartisan public opinion market research firm, OH Predictive Insights. And if you've never seen us, that is our nerdery there on Central and Osborne. I will save you, I won't read off that stuff, but basically we are based in the Southwest region. We expanded recently into Nevada and Utah, which has been going very well, but we're based here out of Phoenix, Arizona. And basically a nationally recognized research firm, provides accurate public opinion surveys. Last election, can't speak for everybody else, we were 5 for 5. Can't talk about folks in Florida, but here in Arizona we can tell them how to do good polling. And then market research, advanced data analytics, so basically a nerdery and experience in public policy, government, corporate arenas, and utilizing qualitative, quantitative, and yada, yada, yada. But anyways, enough of that, let's get into the fun stuff. Enough about moi. And so looking at first Arizona's political climate. So let's look at what the impact will be. So there's certain things that are going on, and this is what you call the top issue. And if you haven't seen our slides before, just for a quick edification, is that if you notice in the bottom middle, is that, we will typically paraphrase things as we go through the presentation, but we'll always put our methodological notes at the bottom. So like, how exactly was that question phrased? For example, this one, Arizona's top issue, the way we phrase it is, which of the following would you say are the most important issues facing Arizona? So what's that biggest pain point for voters? And so as we're tracking this, and end sizes, etc. So just FYI, if something seems paraphrased, you can always go there and check it out. But this is interesting. So Arizona's top issue. So we've obviously been tracking Arizona for a little time now. And we started back in 2000 on this line, 2019 in February, which was the beginning of the off year of those midterm, of that presidential cycle that we just wrapped up. And you see that before going into the 2020 or presidential election year, is that immigration, that yellow line over there, was actually one out of every 3 Arizona voters said that was their most pressing issue. However, you're starting to see a slight decline, and then you see that between that March-April timeframe, right there in 2020, you see it takes a stark decline. Numbers just don't move. There's always a why behind it, and this is that that's when COVID made landfall. It went from it being on the TV, seeing the Italian guys singing from the balcony, right, to, oh, it's in our backyard. And so it became very real at that point. So you see that immigration really took a back seat to the other more pressing issues. And you're probably wondering, hey, jobs in the economy, why was that so low prior to it? Remember what was going on before. We were on a 3-year heater with the stock market and almost record low unemployment. I mean, it's not a pain point, it's not an issue because things were great, but then a pandemic comes, you shut down the economy, etc. All of a sudden, jobs in the economy becomes much more important. But what's most fascinating, as we got closer, as we marched towards election day, is that way that environment was, it was very pro for Democrat candidates and not so much for Republicans. So you think of the top 3 issues, think of them as like a 3-legged stool. 2 of the 3 issues benefited more Democrats than Republicans. But what's interesting, as we stepped into this off year, the shoe is now on the other foot. Because think about it, during the election, immigration wasn't even a top 3 issue at that time. No one was talking about it because it wasn't important to voters. But now you can expect, especially in the Republican primaries, immigration, they will be pounding that drum very hard, but immigration currently the top issue, with jobs in the economy number 2, and education, healthcare kind of jockeying for that 3rd position. But again, it kind of flipped. The environment now is looking better from an issue standpoint to benefit actually Republicans a bit more right now than it was more favorable Democrats during the last election. And so now we look at presidential job approval. This is another key indicator. And Biden is now, this is actually quite shocking, Biden is now as unpopular as Trump was in January of 2021 after the attack on the Capitol building. Fascinating, right? So we see the same trend line chart over the same period of time, and we put those call outs of kind of key events to show what was kind of happening that was kind of driving numbers either up or down. And you see that one of the big flips, like in January 21, you see, oh, how come the numbers, you see Trump kind of spiked up a little bit from that January 6th event. Voters didn't like that a little bit, but then you see the numbers flip around. Well, we had a change in presidents. And Biden was doing fine up until the Afghanistan withdrawal, which he very much didn't do a good job. And his numbers have very much suffered, not only nationally, but here in Arizona. But right now, Joe Biden's underwater by about 13 points in the presidential job approval. Why is that important? Because in these off-year elections, where the president's job approval has a huge impact down ticket on races. So if you have an R or D next to your name, how Joe's doing is going to have a huge impact on the Senate races and everything else on down. But right now, again, another thing kind of shifting this new environment is currently now favoring Republicans. If the election were held today, it'd be very good for them right now, given Biden's approval. But we'll see how that continues the trend. But let's look at, not just Afghanistan. Here's one of Biden's net approval on some selected issues. You'll see at the bottom, you have immigration, COVID-19, the economy, foreign policy in general, and uniting the country were a couple of questions that we've asked or tracked on. And like this question, for example, this was based off 882 registered voters, so pretty strong sample size. And you look at the blue bar is what the May net approval was for Biden on that particular issue. The green bar is going to be the September net approval, and the red bar is that shift. So what did it change from? And you see that immigration, not so much. But when you look at COVID-19, for example, his handling of that issue, minus 36 is his shift. So from May to September of this year, overall, Arizona's, I don't think he's really done a great job, or he's been slipping. And then the economy, foreign policy, and uniting the country. So a couple of those items. So again, Biden's got a couple problems right now. But we'll see how this continues. So now let's set the stage for 2020. And for 2020, this is something that's interesting, is that Arizona, we're starting probably to get used to now, is that, hey, when you're not a reliably red state and you become this thing of a battleground state, you become, money will follow. So when there's competitive races, just expect more money, a deluge of money. And why this is important, because when you look at the spending projections of 2022, it's funny, back in the last midterms in 2018, Arizona was projected to have about $270 million in broadcast spending. So broadcast spending meaning anything on TV, radio, cable, and then digital, direct digital spend. And so looking at this, Arizona this year will actually be in the top 5 for political broadcast spending. Why is that important? Because if anyone's going to be doing any type of broadcast spending, you might want to reserve your time sooner rather than later, because in the last month of the previous election, there wasn't enough inventory to go around. Outside groups, when it was about $400 per gross rating point is what it gets for candidates. Outside groups were paying anywhere from $1,200 to $1,400 for the same gross rating point. Remember, tonnage is tonnage when it comes to media, but again, when you're paying 3 times the dollar amount, especially if you're fiscally conservative, just something to keep in the back of your head. So, but you can see the states were right up there, but follow the money, and that's where the competitiveness is at. California just do their high cost media market, but Arizona, Georgia, Florida, and Pennsylvania will be in the top 5. And because we have an open governor's seat and then a Senate race. So moving on, is that also what is going to be very important is that if Republicans can manage to hold on to the state legislature. So what this is from 1992 to 2020, just trying to show you a very top-down view of this party control by the House, which is the dark lines up top, and then the state Senate, which are the little bit lighter lines in the bottom. And you see that over time, it's probably the closest it's ever been right now. So again, there's a lot of huge political ramifications from not only electing our next CEO of the state, our governor, to the other statewide offices, but also here in the House and the Senate. Again, if one of those chambers flips, I mean, that has huge implications on public policy here in Arizona. So, and what's also very interesting, right now, 24 of the 90 state 24 of the 90 state legislative seats have open races so far. And I would guess that probably it'll be about 1/3 of the legislative seats are going to be essentially open. So again, it is very much, there's going to be a lot of shift, a lot of new faces you're going to see in Arizona politics. So for me, I think it hasn't been a more exciting time to be an Arizonan, to watch Arizona politics, because last cycle was very much about the federal items. So again, couldn't be more excited to see this excitement we have in the public affairs realms right now. And so who's ready for a round of musical chairs? Don't worry, I'm not going to make anybody get out of your chairs, especially you, so don't worry, you're fine. And we got you covered. So here, let's just go through, just visualize or highlight just why, again, this so much shift we're going to see again. Why is this happening? This little thing that happens every 10 years called redistricting, where they change the rules of the game. So first is, this is currently our makeup right now. So you got your statewide office holder. Remember, these are the folks that are up for election. That's why you don't see Kirsten Sinema up there. She is very much talked about, but she's very much not up for re-election until 2024. But right now, you see is that, and we highlighted around the boxes just to give the party indications. I know you're all pretty familiar, but just in case. And then we have the state Senate on the bottom left, state House on the right, and then the U.S. House, or our congressional delegation, in the middle. And as we go through, you'll see this will start to change as we go through our rounds. And let's first here, round 1, let's just look at who's just retiring, resigning, or being termed out. So there's the first one, is that currently, it's not showing on, the text is behind. They put it on there, the text is behind. Anyways, that top right box is supposed to show there's about a dozen names roughly that are out there, and it shows the changing and differences. On the PDF that you all will receive after this, we'll definitely have that on there. It's just I can't technically troubleshoot this in the middle of the presentation, so just to spare you all that, but I promise you'll get the PDF. It'll have that. I'll show it, but it'll tell you who's removing, and of course what the reason was of why they were going, whether they're retiring, resigning, or etc. But you'll see that shift. Oh wait, hold on. This is what happens. Okay, so my analysts, apparently, they said they added animations, and I'm like, I didn't know we could do that. Anyways, so here you go. Governor Ducey, termed out. Yeah, just hit the button, Mike. Hit the button. U.S. Rep. Ann Kirkpatrick retiring. AZ Senator Sean Bowie retiring from District 18. 19, Senator Contreras termed out, resigned. oh, Cobb retiring. And unfortunately, this was tough because I knew Frank Pratt from my earlier days, such a nice, awesome guy. Whether you agree with his politics or not, he was a great, I think, local representative, and he will be sorely missed. And we have AZ Rep Brett Brooks in LD11, resigned, Richard Johnny termed, Bowers term, Espinoza term. So you can see there, and as that changed, so again, we already got, and the gray ones are the ones that, where those spots are kind of opening up, right? Remember, that's just round one. All right, let's get to round two. And this will be better since I know what's going on now. So who's leaving to run for federal office? Yeah. Long clicker. Getting the wheel.
Changed it behind you.
Hold on, I'm getting the spinning wheel right now.
Without this round would be better.
You can go off the TV.
Oh, TV's still going? Oh, here you go.
Because I'm running the TV.
Gotcha. Okay, there it is, right up there.
Say click me.
So click me. So leaving this round, Bertovich, he's moving off, right? So Bertovich moving off, he's challenging what? He's running in the GOP primary to challenge Senator Mark Kelly, right? And then you have, there goes a little dot. That one for the state senate moves over there with Kirsten Engel running for U.S. House. And then you have AZ Rep Daniel Hernandez, who's moving from the state house, or from the state house, moving over to the U.S. House. So now round three, who's, and this gets a little bit more interesting, is round three, who's leaving to run for a state office? Remember, we have all the statewide offices up this year. So again, this is why we get this kind of musical chairs are happening, because you never get as much political opportunity as you do during redistricting. So now we're leaving on this round, we're gonna have a few more. So we have Secretary of State Katie Hobbs. All right, she's out of there. That's opened up, and she's running for governor. All right, State Treasurer Kimberly Yee. She's moving to governor. That opens that one up, right? Isn't musical chairs fun? Michelle Ugenti Rita, State Senator from 23, Secretary of State. Oh, there goes another one. We got Livingston running for treasurer. And then State Senator Martin Quezada running for treasurer. Don't worry, we got more. Kavanaugh. Oh, he's going there. He's going from the House for the State Senate, right? And then we got Stephanie Hamilton, District 10, AZ Senate. Who else we got? Aaron Lieberman running for governor. And Mitzi Epstein, State Senate, moved from the House. Who else we got? Oh, Michelle Udall, Superintendent of Public Instruction, to challenge Kathy Hoffman, the current incumbent Democrat. And then Mark Fincham running for Secretary of State. And then we got Jeff Weninger, which would be treasurer. And then Reginald Boulding, District 27, going to Secretary of State. Isn't this wild? When you really visualize and put into context, right? And then you got Diego Rodriguez, AG, and then Shauna Bullock, Secretary of State. And this is just of right now. This will probably change even more because we're not even in the election year yet. Remember back in the day where most people announced about in January be the time frame, but it seems like that goalpost, it keeps moving back, farther back. We see not only the presidential contest, but here in the state, Arizona as well, especially as we become more competitive. So who's going to fill Ducey's seat? Anyone interested in governor's race? A chance? So that's a great question, and hopefully this saves us. Yeah. And remember, this is incredibly early on in the race. I don't really like to do horse race polls this early. The only reason I did it was mainly the fact that just to get a baseline right now, because with so many folks in the race, again, you're only going to have to probably need to get in this race maybe 25, but probably 30% of the vote, and you're going to be okay, compared to having to get to what normally 50% plus one in a one-on-one contest. But it's interesting right now, and this is absolutely going to shift and move, and it's going to be fascinating as we track it, where it's going. But right now, Carrie Lake is in a good position. Is she secure? No. You know why? Because the biggest number right now is how many of the registered voters in the Republicans are not sure. You have a majority of them. 53% are unsure, they haven't made a decision. which makes sense because we just finished an election. Actually, they're still auditing the last election apparently, and now we're, and we haven't even got into the field. So of course, there's a lot there, but Kari Lake currently enjoys a slight lead right now. Personally, I wouldn't want to be in the lead this early because everyone's going to attack you. But currently, she's at 25%. But what's driving that 25% number demographically? Because there wasn't really a difference in many of these candidates' coalitions this early out. But for her, it was really her support was deriving from Maricopa County. But remember, she served 27 years as a local anchor on Fox. And then also the rural counties, which is very much Trump country. And those with high school education or less and middle income voters are currently where she's doing a little bit better than some of the other folks running right now. But again, we have a long time until election day. But the state of the governor's race, still very much, I think it's going to be exciting. You see these numbers move a ton. And I think this will look very different as we get close to primary day. So now let's look at the Democratic primary. This one going to be less interesting because on the polling front, Katie Hobbs clearly 4 out of 10 Democratic voters already say they would vote for her today. And you have less unsures in that contest, about 10 points less, 42% are unsure. And Marco Lopez and Aaron Lieberman, respectively, getting about 10 points each. The big difference, what this doesn't quantify, besides polling, the other big thing to monitor is money. One thing we do know, Hobbs has raised a significant amount of money due to the audit and being on CNN like every night because of the audit. So it was a big help for boosted name ID, but fundraising. The reports won't be out on the state. They don't report at all during the off year. So it'll be about January, February. That report will be out. We'll expect that she'll probably have millions there. The big thing is Marco Lopez or Lieberman, if they were able to raise some cash, I think this thing could be competitive. But if I think will happen, she'll have a lot, they'll have a little. I think it's probably a foregone conclusion that Hobbs will be the Democrat nominee. But since it's so far out, let's look at the generic ballot. So we asked a generic ballot question on governor. There's so many people running and so far out. So best way to do it, generically, Republicans actually have a slight edge right now, which is great. They have a +3 edge, 39 to 36, but 25% of our voting electorate currently is unsure. And those are really the gettable folks once you get to the general election. But remember, they're going to be battling out to win their primaries first. But it's very interesting to see, and independents right now are truly split down the middle. A quarter with the Republicans, a quarter with Democrats, but half of these independents haven't made up their mind yet. But again, they're going to be a key voting bloc when it comes to the general election. But now the next question is, will Arizona have its 7th senator in less than 5 years? Now that is wild. These usually don't swap out very much, but we've had a lot of change, a lot of things moving around. So looking here at the GOP, so we'll start on the Republican side for the GOP Senate race. And like in the gubernatorial primary, GOP voters are taking their time when making up their mind, but again, it's still very early. 51% are unsure in that contest, but our current Attorney General, Republican Mark Brnovich, currently is in a good position. I would say, I try to liken them to tiers. General Brnovich is in tier 1 right now, with his support really coming from Maricopa County, the rurals, older voters, and conservatives. And then you have actually former National Guard, head of the National Guard here in Arizona, General Michael McGuire, or Mick McGuire, some refer to him as, but his support comes from more younger and moderate Republican voters, interestingly enough. But he's actually tier 2, and you don't hear him mentioned as much. You hear a lot about Brnovich, Masters, and Lehman. And it's interesting, McGuire gets skipped over a bunch, but in all our polling, he's been consistently in second place and ahead above the folks in tier 3, which are Blake Masters and Jim Lehman. But one thing I'll point out, which I think is fascinating, there's always a thing in political consultants say, hey, don't spend a bunch of your money early when voters aren't paying attention. Keep your powder dry and spend it when they're paying attention. Let's use Jim Lehman as an example. He's one of the rare ones, as he spent well over $1 million already on TV advertisements, mailers, etc. He's already been doing messaging early. Here's the thing, he spent over $1 million, he's at 3%. So again, to that adage that consultants say, I think they might be right, but they've also run a ton of campaigns, and I think this is Jim's first campaign. So again, interesting how, but also the value consultants bring to the table with their experience. But again, I don't think anyone would light $1 million on fire. I wouldn't. But anyways, when you got here, Mark Kelly, so when we look at the Mark Kelly doesn't have a challenger, he's an incumbent senator who won, but again, he, because it was a special election, he is up 2 years later, even though it should be a 6-year term. Anyway, so since he's up, he's the big takeaway here. Even though Mark Kelly leads all potential GOP candidates right now, Mark Kelly doesn't crack 50% against any of the hypothetical matchups of the folks running. And that's important because that means he's not secure. Because remember, you have to get 50% plus one, last I checked in these generals. So looking at this, and you look at the different Republicans, they're all pretty much within the margin of error of each other. But again, even Blake Masters and Lehman, about the same. Brnovich slightly ahead, but generically, so they have some time to tell their story and establish that. But Mark Kelly is not secured or entrenched yet, so that should be a very interesting Senate race to watch and very competitive. But now let's go to everyone's favorite topic, COVID. So this one actually, and I'm not going to bore you all with this one. I'm going to show you hopefully some stuff that I think you'll find very fascinating about it. In that this last poll was in September of 21, so just about a month or so ago. So of course opinions could have shifted, but we're tracking this every 2 months. And and I'll show you here how we've been tracking that. But first is, let's look at September, so our most recent one, is that a plurality, so not a majority, of Arizonans are once again at the highest levels of concern over coronavirus. Interestingly enough is that we were really making some headway once the vaccine came in. Well, there's this little thing called the Delta variant that has started to push concern back up a little bit. Right, wrong, or indifferent, this is just kind of what's happening and what voters are feeling. But right now they're a bit more concerned than they are unconcerned, which is reversed from the previous trend we've seen. But look at this. This is probably one of the most interesting takeaways from the last election cycle, and still continues to be this day. And this is, all we're doing is showing that concern level. So only taking the top 2 levels of concern. Those that are extremely or moderately concerned about the spread of coronavirus. Because what is the unique aspect about the coronavirus? It is that it's so darn infectious, right? And that's also what has mostly been reported on, is that infection rate. Yes, it is deadly. However, when you look at its unique aspect, its effectiveness is probably its uniqueness. So again, measuring that and tracking that, so we're tracking that concern, but then breaking it out by party affiliation. The dotted line is, the whole electorate, all registered voters. But here in Arizona, we're about 1/3 Democrat, 1/3 Republican, 1/3 Independents, with Republicans with a slight edge. So when you look at a third, but the top line doesn't seem that interesting. But when you break out the party lines on that concern level, it tells a fascinating story. When COVID made landfall, remember, they're watching on TV, it wasn't a big deal. It made landfall, all of a sudden, concern shot up across the board. But as it went on, you notice that there's 2 interesting trends that happened. With Democrats, they pretty much stayed incredibly high with their concern level throughout. Through good, bad, or indifferent, they were very much concerned about COVID. Republicans did something a little bit differently. They would get concerned once there would be spikes that happened. So whether it made landfall, like, oh, COVID's here. Like, oh, it's not too bad. We're doing fine. And then the June spike happened. They're like, oh, I don't like this ride. And then we get over the hump, right? And they're like, oh, things are fine. We're good. And then in December, January, we had our big winter spike. Remember, we had 2 big spikes. And so the winter spike is like, oh, I don't like this ride again. And then they come back down. Compared to Democrats, very much just really stayed very, very high up there. But you notice there's something interesting when we get to 2021, that January and March. Remember, January is when COVID, the vaccine, like, hey, we had a vaccine, but we had to, make it and distribute it. So that's going to be tough. And so it started getting distributed like around March to that May timeframe. I think May is when the State Farm Stadium opened up, the vaccine stuff. That made a lot of news. But you notice that right about March, all 3 parties all of a sudden started declining on their concern level. It's almost like the vaccine works. Crazy, right? And so you look at that, but you notice that we're all trending down. But then recently you notice I was saying there's an uptick right now, but the uptick primarily is being driven by Democrats, a little bit by independents, because you've noticed independents have always been kind of in the middle of where Democrats and Republicans are. And so, but Republicans, not so much, right? I think they've kind of accepted it. It's over, but again, you see how this really accentuates how COVID is a unique issue where it doesn't care about your political party, your income, your ethnicity. COVID don't care. It's like the honey badger. And so when you look at these folks, it's that it absolutely unequivocally, right, wrong, or indifferent, it got turned into a political football. So, but just to show that, but it has had a huge impact on the election. And the last few slides, how much time have I got left? I'm over?
You're way over.
I always fine. Okay, then I'll go rapid fast because that's all the good data stuff. But I have, just real quick, a lot of this stuff, and just to mention for edification purposes, right now for folks, there wasn't this capability or opportunity before. This nationally recognized survey we do every other month, Arizona Public Opinion Pulse. We do it bi-monthly, and we actually have all three unique lenses. Gen Pop, so you're 18 plus, which is great for corporate, registered voters, but even likely voters we have in there as well. So depending what snapshot of the electorate you have, we always have in there. But people can hitch a ride for only $2,500 a question, and you can get it. So essentially, if you have an issue you want to test or message, etc., it's a great vehicle to do it and very cost effective because research is expensive. But it's always a great opportunity for candidates, campaigns, organizations to hop on to get some great survey research, but also at a really low price. So it's a great value. And then this is just kind of all the stuff we do, because everything you see out there in the press release is like 1% of what we do. We actually do a ton of other stuff, such as the public speaking, public opinion surveys, data analysis, and of course, actually half of our business is actually market research with corporate clients doing a lot of these type of things like brand equity solutions, customer segmentation, brand tracking studies, etc. But enough about me and all that fun stuff. I want to end with the most important slide. Thank you for you all inviting me here today to speak to your very well-respected and well-regarded group. And thank you for all that you do for Arizona's business community.
Thank you, sir. I don't know, Eric, if you promised to speak really fast, and maybe if we can get a couple of, if we can get everybody to agree to maybe stay a couple of minutes late to go over the EBCCA document. If there's any clarification from Mr. Noble, I don't want to start a really big discussion on anything. Anybody need any clarification on anything he brought forward this morning?
Great information.
Yep.
Yeah, just a comment. We've worked with Mike on a couple occasions, and I always get the pleasure of speaking after you, so thanks for that, because you have really cool toys. But they do a great job. They're very accurate, they're nonpartisan, they're just a really good outfit.
Data's fun.
I would echo that.
Thank you. Thank you, Essen. Thank you, Eric.
Bob, nobody raising their hand?
Nope.
All right.
Everybody's ready to move on.
All right. Well, thank you so very
Thank-
much. We really appreciate it.
And the last thing I want to add is that, so one unique thing most don't know about me, I actually was a small business owner. I started when I was age 25. And it's funny, is I'd say half pollster, but half a small business owner. And so the small business, I'm very active in the chamber communities, hence why coming out. Just know that I'm a friend of the business community. So if you ever have questions, comments, anything, know you got a nerd you can call. I'm always happy to answer or grab a coffee. Again, pick my brain, I won't charge you or anything like that. So again, I just want to extend that. Again, please use me as a resource, know it, because again, friend of the chambers and staff.
Well, we appreciate that very much. Well, you guys be careful out there. Thank you very much, Philip, for putting this together. And thank you again for all your hard work.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
All right, Mr. Emmert, you're on.
Okay, can you guys hear me out there, and what's going on?
We got you, Eric.
Somebody's
Can you all
thumbs up,
see my
or-
screen?
James is shaking his head yes.
Yes.
Yeah, can we put it up on the
Oh, there you go.
TV there?
Maybe you had something over here.
He's sharing a screen.
It's
So.
because I'm,
Oh, you're fine.
out of this. Hold on, one
That
second.
was my watch.
One second.
Line up well.
Yeah, thanks.
Nope, that's not it. Hang on. Okay. Sorry. No, you're good.
Apologies.
When in doubt, restart, right?
Yeah.
No, we're getting there. Hang on.
Okay.
Yes, but where are we getting?
Oh, there, okay, all right. There we go, okay. Well, Mike has really cool toys. I have really cool text to share with you guys. So, all right, each year we go through the adoption of the East Valley Chambers of Commerce Alliance legislative agenda. This sets the stage for the upcoming 2022 legislative session. It provides guidelines for which we are able to evaluate bills, introduce amendments, oppose things that are really bad, so on and so forth. There aren't big changes this year, so I'm going to go through this rather quickly. There are several sections. We'll take them each in turn, and unless there are any questions or significant changes, at the end, Madam Chair, we'll take a motion to approve it, and then it'll go to the board. So we'll start out with economic development. The highlighted language is language that is being changed. Underlined is being added. Struck through is being removed. So not much here in economic development. We changed some certification and credential language and moved it around. No significant changes in this section. Education and K-12, nothing new here. Education post-secondary, we highlighted Arizona State's New Economy Initiative. That's a big deal for Mesa especially. We're excited about the things that are coming, especially over in Ryan Smith land, over by the airport. And election reform, we simply spelled out propositions rather than props. Here's a win, clearly communicating the implications of Arizona's Voter Protection Act. Michelle Ugenti-Rita took that bill, ran with it, got it across the finish line, and it's signed into law. So each time you go to the ballot, above the initiative and referendum section, you'll have a disclosure statement thanks to the chambers in the East Valley. Some changes here with language to try and make things more relevant to water banking and whatnot. Green initiatives, that was kind of moved around, but what you're seeing here is not significant changes, it's just language alterations. In government processes, we're going to look at possibly doing some transparency language for special districts. What we're seeing is a lot of the special districts are supposed to post their budgets and agendas and minutes online so that people can look at them. They're subdivisions of the state. So what we're saying is let's have more transparency there because they're not doing that. Streamlining corporation commission processes, allowing for same day and next day filing. If you want to start a business in today's day and age, you should be able to start it that day. The Corporation Commission responded to our request, and we now have that, again, thanks to your East Valley Chambers. Just a few language changes here, nothing significant. Gaming compacts, we tackled that one this year. That's not necessarily our big issue, but it was nice to get that done. Unless there are any questions on that section, we'll move on. Okay, for those of you that are still awake, in healthcare, we struck some language regarding jobs, made them their own separate bullet, and added some other things. No big changes there. Any questions? Okay, immigration, didn't touch it. Land management, didn't really touch it other than change some terms there. Protecting employers' workplace policies. Again, the top issue will be right to work and employment at will. They're kind of under attack at the federal government level now rather than the state level. Responsible legislative changes to unemployment insurance. We were at the tip of the spear for that one, talking with Karen Fan about how to modernize the system. She got that through for us. We're very, very thankful. Another East Valley Chamber Alliance led effort. Legislation clarifying current prohibitions against prevailing wage mandates. There may be a bill on that one because of what's occurring in Phoenix and Tempe. Tax policy. There were big tax changes last year, so no recommendations for changes in that section. Tort reform. There are some changes here. One of our members has brought up the issue of theft by extortion. She is seeing people come into her establishment and saying, give me a nothing bundt cake for free or I will leave a bad review on Yelp. At the point in time when someone says, I will do X to you if you don't give me Y, that is a crime, and it's termed theft by extortion, and we need to modernize our statutes to keep that from happening to the extent that we can. So that's in there. Transportation for Mr. Sellers, who's on our call. Note the support for the regional transportation plan. That's an effort that we as a business community collectively are really going to have to get behind. That's a needle that we're going to need to thread and allow the supervisors to put the regional transportation plan on the ballot. We modernized some language on the highway corridors, and then that was about it for that section. And that is it. Are there any questions for my text dump?
Good time.
He's very efficient.
Yes,
Just like
driving and reciting. Okay, good. Wow, very good. Thank you. And I've been through this before, but I learned a couple of things, so thank you very much. Any questions on anything that Eric went through?
Or did you get the email that I sent you from,
Yeah, I did. They were largely innocuous.
Anything else?
Stop sharing.
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry. Thanks, Bob. That's where
Because
you're.
we're getting dizzy.
Yes.
Yeah.
Stop sharing.
Any questions? Anyone want to bring forth a motion?
I'll move to approve the EDCC agendas.
Thank you very much. May I have a second? Right, so the way that this works weirdly is, can I let's just, everybody in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And speak up.
nobody online?
Okay, hearing none. Oh, wait, is he a member? No, okay, never mind. Hand down.
Not yet.
Yeah, okay, nicely done. All right, you have approval from
Okay.
the government affairs.
Thank you, guys. This will go to the board, and I appreciate your help on this.
Welcome, thank you for yours.
Speed dating.
Yeah. Wow, okay, so we actually, I think, are ending early. I don't know how that happened. But do we have, yes, I did. I'm sorry. Sally told me to.
Since he's speaking and we have time, can we put Heston on the spot?
Yes?
He's got an issue that,
That's under
that
other.
we should talk about. We got a letter in to the congressional delegation, but Heston, can you talk about what's going on?
Oh, do tell.
Sure. So I mean, most everybody in the room has been along for the long saga of Resolution Copper over the last 20 years. And as you know, in 2014, the land exchange legislation was passed, with the support of bipartisan support of John McCain in the Senate and Kirkpatrick in the House. We were one of 80 land exchange bills passed that year, but the only one that required to go through a NEPA and an EIS before the actual culmination of the land exchange. So we've been riding that ride ever since. 7 years later, just finished the EIS and are waiting for it to be published again, hopefully within the next few months. But at the same time, Congress is working on this $3.5 trillion reconciliation bill, whatever it's going to look like. And Congressman Grijalva, as chairman of the Natural Resources Committee, has introduced part of his package coming out of that committee to repeal the land exchange that would allow us to move forward and repeal the land exchange, as well as take all of the existing and valid mining claims around the land exchange area that we've owned and maintained now for several decades and have identified resources. So we're working on trying to fight that and get whatever the final bill package looks like when it comes to a vote, not having the land exchange repeal included. It's going to takes pressure from other members of the delegation, right? And understanding the impact that the resolution has had and will have into the future of the state of Arizona, rural Arizona, and Mesa, and across the board. So I think we've talked about it in the past, right? We have about 600 people working on site right now. Projection is when we get to full construction to build a place, we'd have 700 jobs created. We're located just outside of Superior, for those who don't know, so about 30-40 minutes away from here. But the vast, probably majority of our workforce and goods and services that we purchase come from kind of this East Valley region. So that's why we have a presence here and stay involved in the East Valley. So any support of contacting members of the delegation and asking them to remove the line exchange repeal is very muchly appreciated.
Well, thank you for
And
sharing
Mike
that.
can talk about the polling data that he did, because it is it is a popular product. I mean, we have statewide support, right?
Yeah.
Both in the local communities, tribal nation communities in the tribal nations, while there's some tribal governments that don't support the project, one in particular. The communities within the reservations do support the project and see the value of the jobs that will come and opportunities that will provide their people, as well as, the local communities in the Copper Triangle and those areas.
What's his motivation for bringing the legislation?
That the congressman?
No.
If you want to stick a shovel in the dirt, he'll close it.
Yeah. And to Hessen's point, so we've been engaged with Resolution for the last few years as one of our partners, and through that, I can tell you is that from all the public opinion research that we have done, what's shocking about it is that when you look at those most closely impacted by this mine, so those in the Copper Triangle, so that radius right around the mine, that local community, overwhelmingly majority support the mine. They not only see the huge economic impact, the jobs, but also trust and believe, because again, Arizona's mining history has had kind of a checkered past, but I think it's probably due to more of those smaller operations, et cetera. But I think Resolution Copper and their parent company Rio Tinto have really, they do it very professionally and very much at a different level. And so they're not going to have that same experience, but they've built that trust in that local community. But also the biggest, what you would assume based on reading articles, that San Carlos tribal reservation right next door to it was fascinating. You hear their leaders, just saying that they're against it. What's interesting, the majority of those tribal residents, because we've been out there to survey those folks, which by the way is incredibly hard. Just ask Philip. Philip was out there knocking doors to get survey responses of how difficult it was. But getting a representative sample of these tribal members, the majority of them support the project and think very highly of them. And there's just a big disconnect between what you're hearing from, like, let's say, Rep. Halva or what you see in the papers, because majority of their constituents are very much in favor of it. So it's fascinating that, but the public support is absolutely there for it. It's just you still have a couple folks that I guess have a bone to pick or whatever that case may be. So again, it's a critical juncture for Resolution Copper. So that support or doing that, now is the time, I would say. But the data's on their side, absolutely. And that's it.
What's your political strategy? How are you attacking it?
Oh.
From all sides.
From every front
Job
possible.
security has to, that's what it is.
No, I mean, so Resolution and Rio Tinto as a whole, we have very strong relationships with labor organizations. I mean, that's probably the number one key is we're very close with labor. We've got neutrality agreements with United Steelworkers. We're getting ready to sign the project labor agreement with the Arizona Building Trades, to build in the future. So a lot of political leverage coming from the international labor organizations. Obviously, local communities and applying their pressure. We've had strong coalitions of the local communities and governments doing the same, right? Reaching out to congressional members and having those one-on-one meetings. Got a multitude of lobbyists in DC that are working on this. So I have a call every Wednesday, and it looks like that. And working with the tribal folks that are supportive of the project, right? And getting them to voice their opinions where culturally it's not normal for them to speak out against their leadership, but trying to convince them that it's important. We're starting to get there on that side.
Well, again, good luck. a lot of work, a lot of dollars out the door, obviously, for you on this, and we appreciate you bringing it to our attention.
Absolutely.
So glad you're here this morning and you could carve out a little bit of time for us. All right, that being said, do we have any other suggestions or requests for topics or speakers in the upcoming months? Anybody have something that's hot on their minds? Okay, well, if you'd like to think about it, that's fine, and make sure to get back to us. That being said, I think we're just about on the money, and thank you everyone for being here. We are adjourned.
Stay connected to Mesa Chamber social media, email newsletters, Monday morning message, and mesachamber.org to always know what's happening at your Mesa Chamber.